Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be taking a palette cleanser from the GSC and painting up this Warhammer commemorative thing. Unbroken is what it's called, but it's just a Kaserkin Sergeant as far as I can tell. Now these are all the paints I used for this kit, as well as a few notes. Like, one thing I did like about this is the box had pictures of him from the back, which you almost never see on any of the boxes or stuff, so because normally they just show the front and some like side angles still from the front, or some close-ups on certain weapons, but you rarely see what they do, how they paint everything, unless you go onto the website and they have a 360-degree view of some of the models. And then I primed the model with car primer, the black primer, and it's assembled. His arms are separate, his head is assembled to his chest and legs, and his backpack is separate. Alright, for this model I'm trying to go a bit big, so we're going to be focusing more on brushes and brush strokes and trying to build up layers. So with Steel Legion Drab, XV88, and Rack Hard Flesh, and some Lamian Medium to help some things smooth over, we're going to start by painting the cloth, which is like on the inside under the plates and stuff, so it'll be the hardest to get after the fact. So base layer of Steel Legion Drab all over. And so what I wanted to do was, it's something I learned from Mortorian and the past Acolyte models I painted, the banner, using a dry brush and just dabbing it all over with a brighter color creates this texture like look for cloth. It's pretty nice. And then I would add like lines on it to sharpen it out. So basically that's what I did with XV88. Then I did the same thing with Rack Hard Flesh, applying, just tapping all over, adding like a textured feel or look to the cloth. Then I painted the lines in with Rack Hard Flesh, which is just highlights on the most raised areas or sharp edges and stuff like that. But the colors were a bit too different from each other, so I made a wash of Steel Legion Drab to apply all over to tie the colors together and dampen down the brightness. Then I re-highlighted with Rack Hard Flesh, but this time I very finely painted vertical lines up and down along the cloth in areas to create the look of better texture, because a problem I had is that the dry brushing stuff, this model is so tiny that you can't really pick out the stippling from the dry brush. So the colors need some work. So with Seraphim, Sepia, and Lamian Medium mixed together just a little bit, I then apply this over the cloth to give it this warm brownish color and then tie down the colors a bit. Alright, with Corvus Black, Eshin Grey, and Dawnstone, we're going to paint essentially these pieces of his under armor, like his knee pads wrapped around his legs and under his shoulder pads, like these black leather padding straps. I don't know how to describe it, but basically I'm going to start with base layer of Corvus Black on them, then Eshin Grey covering like 90% of them, and Dawnstone as a thin line highlight on some edges. And then I go back with a wash made of Corvus Black and I just apply it all over to fix some things, tie some colors together, and you can go back and forth with highlighting with Dawnstone and Corvus Black wash so you get making it look right. And with Corvus Black, Eshin Grey, and Dawnstone, we're going to paint these cords coming from the gun and their backpack. So essentially, these are different, that's why I have to describe them differently. So basically, Corvus Black base, Eshin Grey on all the tubes, then Dawnstone like scratches, like up and down vertical lines all throughout it on the right and left sides of the tubes. And then I went back with some Corvus Black wash, I think, maybe? I may have skipped that step. And then I went back with Dawnstone again and basically just added layers. So it just looks like a black cord with like texture and stuff on it. I don't know how to describe. I've seen them in real life, but basically it's not perfectly a black tube. It adds some flavor, character to it. Yeah. Oh, and also I did the boots pretty much the same way as the previous step. Alright, with Lauren Force, Castellan Green, Elysian Green, Lamian Medium, and Death Core of Krieg Drab. It's like a very dark green. So I didn't really use Castellan Green in the end because it just wasn't dark enough. So basically the idea was a mid-tone, then add shadow, then add light, essentially. And Castellan Green wasn't dark enough. I only realized this after. So basically, paint all the armor plates and everything with Lauren Green, then with Krieg, Khaki, whatever. Death Core Drab, yeah. We then apply it into the shadows, the creases, and the undersides and stuff. Then I went back with Lauren Force and built the first layer of real highlights to make sure that if I didn't add too much shadow everywhere. And so basically the paint is watered down a bit, but the colors are close enough that... so I tried initially to use very watered down stuff and build up layers, but this takes a long time, and the colors are very close enough that it's easier to add mixes and it'll work out well. Just make sure it's watered well enough so that it'll come out smooth. So basically Lauren Forest on all the raised areas. Then I did a Lauren Forest and Elysium Green mix to do the higher raised areas and also build like some, I outlined everything, like edge highlighted. And then I did pure Elysium Green to highlight the most raised areas, the most sharpest raised areas, edges and stuff. Highlight edging the most raised areas, yeah. And so this is a process. I chose the longest way to do it, but ultimately doing very thin layers with a lot of water wasn't needed because the colors are somewhat so close together. You can just mix them together and they'll do a pretty good job of blending well. Alright, with Elysium Green and Pallid Witch Flesh, I basically try and go and highlight the edges or because the highlights weren't high enough and they kind of was blending together at a distance, so I used this color to basically be able to outline everything even more sharper. Because the model is so small, a sharper highlights or brighter colors can stand out better against other ones. If the model was much bigger, I wouldn't need to, so sharper contrast of colors helps. Now, unfortunately, like my brushing wasn't that good, so I kind of made the lines a little too big. So how I fixed this is I went back with the previous colors like Lauren Forest, Drab, and Krieg's Drab, Elysium Green, and I just retouched up some places so that the lines I made here became much thinner and better. So you're going to see a picture. It's not as good. That's what it was, but then I fixed it later. You'll notice it's the fix later. Alright, with Baneblade Brown and Mournfang Brown. So basically their armor has like these stripes, V's, triangles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take Baneblade Brown and I'm going to paint the symbol image or like sharp lines in there, and that's the outline. I'm doing my best to make sure the lines are straight, and then I will fill in the thing with Mournfang Brown again, and looks good. Alright, we're going to quickly do the base. So with Steel Legion Drab, Guilliman Flesh, Baneblade Brown, and Rakarth Flesh, here's what we're going to do. Base layer Steel Legion Drab all over. Then pure Guilliman Flesh all over. Not a very thick layer, but just thin enough that it pools. Then we're going to go back with Steel Legion Drab in our dry brush, and we're going to basically dry brush, but also stipple, tap, 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 tap all over. Then we're going to do the same thing with Baneblade Brown, just slightly less, and then Rakarth Flesh, do the same thing. And then finally, with a paintbrush, we're going to paint all the edges of all the bricks and all the things outlined with Rakarth Flesh. And that's it. And I'm going to glue the guy to the base. The reason is his paint layers are so thin that I'm peeling them off by touching him. So this is an easy way of painting him without damaging everything I keep painting. Alright, with Gorthor Brown, Guilliman Flesh, Nightquestor Flesh, and Baneblade Brown, and Lamian Medium, we're going to paint the satchel's bags he has. Now, the art, or the cover, has a one color, but like it blends in with everything else, so I didn't want to use it. So, Gorthor Brown base, then Guilliman Flesh all over, Guilliman Flesh mixed with Lamian Medium to help equalize it. But I think I used a little too much, and the Guilliman Flesh is too diluted, so it's not as dark. Then I go back with Gorthor Brown and cover 90% of everything with it, avoiding the deepest recesses, folds, stuff like that. Then highlighted pretty much everything with Nightquestor Flesh, all the edges, and a good portion of each face. And then sharp lines on... with Baneblade Brown, all the edges of the bags and stuff, and feathering it a little bit on the edges and stuff to add some texture. But that wasn't good enough. I took some Guilliman Flesh afterwards, and then with a very fine brush, applied it directly into the sharpest recesses, because I wanted to try a different color, and it's okay. It blends in. It doesn't detract. Alright, with Corvus Black and Fenrisian Grey, I'm going to paint his gun. So basically, Corvus Black all over. Then I do a mix of Corvus Black with a little bit of Fenrisian Grey, and I start highlighting all the edges. And there's a lot of them. The buttons and stuff like that. Then I go to more pure Fenrisian Grey, highlight all the more raised areas and edges again. You have to know that his gun is basically at a 45-degree angle pointing up, and then once that is done, we'll apply more Fenrisian Grey until I get to pure. And then I'll go back with Corvus Black and apply it deep into some recesses here and there, and I do apply like a wash of Corvus Black to sort of tie everything together, and you can go back and forth on this. I do go back after the fact and fix up some of the lines of Fenrisian Grey that aren't as sharp, but that's because like it's harder for me to do accurate stuff when I'm filming because it's so far from my face, so I fix up a few of the mistakes here and there. But yeah, go back and forth with the Corvus Black and Fenrisian Grey until you got it right or what you like. Yeah, because this model is very small. Like, the guy is smaller than my thumb. So... And here begins my biggest problem with the model. Pallid Witch Flesh, Guilliman Flesh, and Lamian Medium. I'm going to paint the flesh, his face. So I did know that from my Acolyte hybrids, I did know that when I did Pallid Witch Flesh as a white base, and what was Magos Purple there, it created a good flesh color and stuff. And then I just kept highlighting with Pallid Witch Flesh and Magos Purple blends. So I thought I could do the same thing with the human face. I was wrong. It works slightly for the very first layer, but then after that, it's like So the thing is, this human face is so small and so smooth that it doesn't create the hard lines that I would need, and then I can smooth out the outer areas. No, his features are so tiny and so smooth that it just doesn't work. And I try, and it just doesn't seem to work. I had pallid witch flesh with a little bit of Guilliman flesh in there and apply those as highlights. It just doesn't work. The color is too contrasting. Also, Magos Purple is a very diluted color, so Guilliman flesh, I'd have to dilute it heavily, and I didn't get that ratio right. So that was my first mistake at this attempt. I try again. Alright, with Nightquester flesh, Cadian flesh tone, pallid witch flesh, and I didn't use Guilliman flesh, but maybe a little bit of Lamian medium. Basically, I went for a layered approach to start with the darkest layer, then started adding some blending colors in and basically doing highlights that way. So, base layer, Questor flesh, Cadian flesh tone mixed in, did some highlights, then went to pure, then went some Cadian flesh tone, pallid witch flesh mixes. I added too much pallid witch flesh and that made it way too bright. It was going good up until then. Then I tried to do a wash of Nightquestor flesh to tone it back down, and then try to refix things again here and there. But his features are very odd, so basically, I had to paint his eyes with the Cadian flesh tone because his eyebrows made it look weird, and his jawline as well. And his face is a little difficult. Basically, me trying to take the fast route ended up messing everything up. So smooth layers, color transitions of blending is the best way to deal with this super smooth face. And I don't show it, but later I add with Mournfang Brown like eyebrows onto him, and basically gives him an inquisitive face. I also use pallid witch flesh into his eyes to create eyeballs, and I can't show it because it is so hard to film and have it like an inch from my face so I can concentrate on it. But I used a 0.25mm micro pen to paint his what is it? Eyeballs, irises, whatever those are. Yeah. Alright, with Dawnstone, Mournfang Brown, XV88, we're going to paint his hair. So first, Dawnstone, watered it down heavily, applied like 5 or 6 layers, created aftershave look, or like 5 o'clock shadow on his face. So I just applied enough, did not let it pool, let it dry. Hair dryer helps speed that process up. And then Mournfang Brown on his head for hair, and then XV88 mix, 1-to-1-ish, painted just lines going from the front of his hair back, and then I went with pure XV88 doing the same thing again, thinner lines, and that's his face and hair and eyebrows. Alright, with Mournfang Brown, XV88 and pallid witch flesh, we're going to paint his eyeglass lenses. So basically Mournfang Brown base, and then we're going to paint the right edges and the top and like a curve from the bottom left corner all the way to the center. I don't know how to put it. Basically, there's Mournfang Brown like a center circle around his nose area, where it would be if you're wearing the mask, and the XV88's around the edges. Then we take XV88 mixed with pallid witch flesh, and we paint straight lines along like these supposed like bends in the glass, and along the top edges and side edges and stuff. And you can go back with Mournfang Brown XV88 to re-straighten the lines made by this highlight color and stuff. Yeah. Oh, and his goggles are painted in the same way we did all the straps and the tubing and stuff with the black. Just didn't bother to mention it here, but yeah. And with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, we apply this all over the models that we have painted. I apply a little bit of water in them, and I do 2 coats of this, because this is a little bit white and pigmented, and adding water in gets rid of that. Alright, with Iron Warrior and Duraluminum, which is basically just a dark metal and a bright silver, I'm going to paint the metals. Now, unfortunately, I thought this dark metal would be dark enough, but essentially these colors, when you put them on next to each other, they look almost the same because of just how lighting works. So, I don't show it, but Nuln Oil is applied all over after after I paint them. So basically, Iron War is based on all the metal pieces, all metal clips. chains, handles, whatever. And then I highlighted them with duraluminum on the edges, on the most raised areas and stuff like that. But then what I did was I went back with Nuln Oil, applied it all over because just to add shadow and stuff, and then I re-highlighted after the fact. So sorry you didn't get to see it, but it's like you have to start from black or you have to use Nuln Oil to add differentiation between these for highlights, because the metals just blend together in color. Alright, with Iron Wars, Duraluminum, Calidor Sky, and Fenrisian Grey, we're going to paint his blade. So his blade is black as a base, so what we're going to do is, something I learned with Mortorian, is that by just painting slashes of the metal, it kind of goes with it. So, I mean, although the Mortorian had a lot more base layers and things propping this up, so this is going from flat black to metals. So I took Iron Wars and basically I painted slashes all along the blade and then slashes in a different angle along the back part of the blade. Then I took Duraluminum and basically did the same thing, sort of cross-grained from Iron Wars. And it looked like a blade with a lot of texture, chips, all that stuff. Then what I did is I took Calidor Sky, I got some Lamine Medium with this as well, and then I applied it onto parts of the blade to add like a bluing effect. Then I took Fenrisian Grey and it didn't work out too well, so I swapped out with Baharoth Blue, because Fenrisian Grey was the wrong color. Baharoth Blue, but it didn't work too well, and I basically messed up. It was too thick. And so basically what I did was I took Duraluminum and a dry brush and stippled all over to add some silver back into it. And then what I did was basically cover the whole thing with Calidor Sky, watered down, and it basically turned the silver metal to a silver bluish. And once that was done, I then went back with Calidor Sky with some Lamine Medium mixed in so it can maintain its consistency, and then applied it near the base of the electrical charge things, like the two dots that are on the right and left side. Applied a few layers until it stuck there and then spread it out so it looked like a blue cloud. Then I went with pure Calidor Sky and then I painted it like lightning bolt lines around the area, like zigzags. Maybe not my best work because I rarely do power weapons. Then I mixed in some Baharoth Blue with the Calidor Sky and did the same thing again. Then I did pure Baharoth at the end in the middle of these little zigzags to create like the power effect, and so it's a bluish metalish blade. I'm experimenting here and it has potential, but the lightning probably could have been a bit better, but I'm not sure how to do that yet. But the bluish metal effect looks nice. And then with Anti-Shine Matte Varnish, I apply it onto his goggles to give them a shine. This thing is glossy. I don't know what they're saying about anti-shine. Oh, also I assembled it off camera because the pieces were so precise. I needed to make sure they were unfitted. And yeah, I couldn't figure out how to film that because it was a lot of back and forth. And done. Well, this is a pretty... I don't know how to put this. It may not show through my work, but I got bored painting this. I mean, I wanted to try to go big on this Kaserkin, but he's so small it's really hard to let a lot of details and stuff go out. I went back and painted a few things, like little buttons and switches here and there, or re-highlighting some areas, or fixing some mistakes here and there, but it was just using the same colors again because my brush work wasn't the best. So nothing special or nothing unique. Like, you're not missing anything. And you don't need me to tell you if a button needs to be green, red, or blue. I mean, come on. So overall, a few things. This is the commemorative model, so I didn't really put that much effort into his base because it was just... It's a one-off. It has no army unity for me. Okay, let's focus on the good things. So the armor plates, the highlighting, and... turned out very well. The green turned out very well. I overcomplicated it by trying to go a bit too big, but I could have just used blends and it would have worked well enough. So I should have paid attention to that better. I did try to make it so that I highlighted him multiple times with dark colors, and then I went to brighter colors and I highlighted that. The reason is because I remember that like the heavy metal models and stuff, they one thing that makes them stand out is that they're highlighted not in one continuous color. There are highlights on their armor and stuff shift color to represent the different changes in light itself. So it's a more complicated and longer thing. Basically, their highlights are multiple colors going up towards the light to represent reality, instead of having one color like in the darkest shadow being the bright color and then going all around to the light. I don't know if I'm describing it well, but basically their highlights are multiple colors. I wanted to try this here by highlighting everything with the darker colors and then building up layers of the highlights so it would transition better. It's so small that my brushwork needed some work. My most tiniest brush barely holds paint, even though it's a sable brush. So I don't like using it because it's like I can touch one thing and then the brush dries up. Overall, the armor looks great. The cloth of his clothing looks great. The black parts, the black leather, black plastic, I don't know what those things are, looks good. His base looks good. Now, onto the things that were difficult. His gun is okay. You see a lot that Games Workshop uses dark colors and highlights them with blue. Like black is highlighted with blue and light blue. I tried that. I probably messed up. Trying to use blends a lot makes it a bit harder to fix mistakes. His gun is okay. The core to his gun is okay. Pretty good. His sword is a good experiment. It's an interesting trial, trying to take something I learned from a previous model set but I just messed up on the lightning. I've done the lightning much better way in the past. I should have paid attention to watch one of those videos in the back. But then again, I was towards the end of the project and I was mentally done with this because he's kind of, I don't know, boring. I just went big with him. And now the big thing was his face. Man, so I show a picture here of a model to scale, but he is not as tall as the Space Marine Scout, but the Space Marine Scout face is so angular and sharp, it's much easier to do these things. His face is so tiny and smooth, it's like you have to make your own recesses and highlights up. It's like almost like drawing on a piece of paper because how smooth his face is. So, yeah, he's so. The face took me a long time because like there was no quick way about it. I thought that maybe I'd be able to do nice layer work or stuff, but it just didn't work. So I had to do the hard way. Like knowing to do the hard way or the easy way, it's a work in progress. I'm learning, still always learning, always experimenting. So overall, this is he's an 8 out of 10 at best. I mean, he looks fine. He looks good. He's great for a line trooper. Like, tremendous effort for a line trooper. His face was so irritating to paint. Yeah, he's a solid 8 out of 10. Why isn't he a 9? His model's boring. Not much coloration in it. Some line work was not that good. His gun work was not that good. Some of the highlights were not that good. It's basically, he could have been a 9 if his gun was painted better with sharper lines, probably better highlights and colors there. If his sword was a bit better, he could have hit a 9. I can't envision what a 10 would be, but it would probably be something using like OSL lighting or probably a better face too, but a face as well. But anyway, he was a good practice trial because I completely forgot to get more models for my GSC army, so I had nothing to paint. Well, actually, I have a lot to paint. But for my army, so I can finally actually play this game despite constantly getting cucked by GW's balance passes, I want to get a 2,000 point army. Come on. Yeah. Well, anyway, alright. So like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share, comment if you want to comment, and more to come. Bye.